Welcome back. Divorce rates have been nudging up, and that is also true for the older demographic, couples age 50 and older. This is sometimes referred to as gray divorce, which is when two people divorce later in life, when there are often larger financial considerations to consider. Our next guest will tell us more on how to stay financially protected and how to navigate shared assets. We're joined now by Julie Seberras. She's head of wealth planning at Manulife Wealth. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Is it fair to say that when people sit down and plan their financial future, no matter how vigorous and detailed they are, this may be a blind spot, that they just don't think of a divorce?
Absolutely, Paul. This is something that we often don't think is going to happen to us. So when we're doing financial planning, we plan for things such as death and disability, but often something like divorce is not something that we are planning for. So when you're faced with this situation, you're planning for it in real time. And, when we talk about gray divorce, you can kind of have different circumstances. One, potentially the couple has accumulated quite a bit of wealth because they've been married for a long time and it's later in life. And then there's complexities involved with dividing those assets. Mm-hmm. You may be a couple that was always a bit uncertain about your ability to achieve your financial goals. And now you're faced with a situation where you're going to have a financial impact to your financial situation because of the divorce, and it may set you back financially. And now it's going to be that much harder to save for those financial goals. You don't have the same runway ahead of you. And your lifestyle may be impacted by this divorce just to get the right saving strategy in place to recover.
Is it realistic to expect people to plan ahead for divorce, or is it of necessity and of reality something that pops up, becomes apparent, we're going to get divorced, it becomes apparent, and people need to start thinking about it at that point, when it becomes reality? Yeah,
so there might be some contemplation of this, and this is where you might start to take a look at your current financial situation and start to assess what would be the financial impact if we were to get divorced. And what you do see in this generation is that often one individual takes the lead with managing the day-to-day finances. Mm-hmm. And in this generation of the baby boomers, it is not uncommon for women to take a bit of a back seat in managing the finances. And so they may be going into this situation not knowing their finances, and it makes it that much harder to determine what life would look like on the other side financially of divorce, and what the impact would be and how it's going to impact their lifestyle and their goals.
How much of a difference does it make if the divorce is relatively amicable versus relatively not amicable?
And that's where you start to get into the legal fees. The legal fees can look very different with an amicable divorce that is quick to settle versus it extending out over a period of time.
So what are some of the things that people need to start thinking about when it becomes apparent that the marriage is not going to last and they are 50 plus?
So I would suggest that everybody have a good understanding of the current day-to-day finances. And so that includes how much income do you have coming in, how much do you have going out in expenses, what do you own, and what do you owe? And I would also recommend keeping inventory of these things as you move through the process of the divorce, as well as once you're on the other side of the divorce. You also need, because it is later in life, it can definitely have an impact on your retirement plan. So I would suggest recalibrating that retirement plan. What is it going to look like for two separate households versus one household? And what do you need to achieve that goal with potentially not much time ahead of you? I'd also recommend taking a look at your insurance coverage. How is that going to change now based on your new circumstances? But another challenge you're going to run into with this is, as you age, with insurance, premiums become more, and it's harder to become insured sometimes. And also, you may have been the spouse covered under somebody else's group insurance plan, so you'd need to assess how that's going to be impacted if you are no longer spouses. And of course, you want to revisit that estate plan. So you want to take a look at your will. Who is your executor? Is your ex-spouse now going to be your executor? Is that the right person to be your executor? Who is your power of attorney? Also take a look at all of your beneficiary designations. This includes everything from insurance policies, who's the beneficiary within your will, who is the beneficiary on your RSP, pension, TFSAs. These are all things that need to be revisited and updated accordingly once you're faced with this life event.
Sounds like you're going to need the help of a family lawyer for some of this. Who else can help? People in your industry, I assume, financial planners can help.
Financial planner, absolutely. So you'd want to revisit all aspects of your financial plan and working closely with your financial advisor. If you and your spouse had the same advisor, you may want to consider having separate advisors once there is a breakdown of the marriage.
And I would think that you mentioned earlier the notion of one household becoming two households. That means one home becoming two homes. The cost of housing, do I buy, do I rent, and where, is a huge decision, I assume.
Absolutely. Now, the baby boomers are a generation that have done reasonably well because they have got into because they got into the housing market potentially years ago, and now they're benefiting from the upside. But you still need to get back into the market or stay within the market, and so now you need to divide that into two households. And then even when you're looking at retirement, if something like the cost of in-house care was something you were looking at, well, now that's two households that you need to provide for that in-home care. And so it really needs to now, you need to really have an understanding of the money in, money out, and what you can afford going forward. And chances are your lifestyle will be impacted to the downside.
What happens to investment portfolios, portfolios of stocks and other securities?
So that would be subject to the division of assets, which really is case by case when it comes to, breakdown of marriage and divorce.